Hey everyone, so as hard as it is to believe, February is now over, another month that just absolutely flew by. And when everything was said and done, February came out to about a $21,000 profit month for me. A nice little step forward from where I was at in January. I basically doubled my month. Now, to be fair, a couple things that did help with this growth. I was trading bigger this month. I did go up to a $1,500 risk. I was the first time since I started trading smaller that I allowed myself to take a step up because my discipline had been steadily improving with each month up until this point. And also, the first week had a pump and dump from Finest Penny Stocks, the group that currently I consider to be the best one out there as far as OTC promotions are concerned. And while I didn't really do that great of a job with it, I still did enough, and it basically made my day on Thursday the 4th. I think I actually made about $7,000 on the play and then lost a little bit elsewhere. But that was an awesome hit for me. But even though those things helped me, overall, this month had a very, very different feel from January. January, I remember, was a month where I felt like there was a lot of opportunity out there. I did not do a good job of capturing that opportunity. And I was a bit frustrated at the end of the month because I felt like I could have done a lot better than I did. Whereas this month in February, there was far, far less opportunity out there. The markets were absolutely crazy this month overall. It's not something I normally follow, but I know they were down huge the first half of the month, second half of the month, rallied back big. And while sure, the overall market had a ton of volatility and just a ton of insanity, the microcap market was overall pretty dead. There was not much going on. A lot of the stocks that did go on runs did not go on runs with very much volume, and that's just more difficult trading for me. So I feel like I did a lot with a little this month, so to speak, and there were definitely a lot of days where I only made a couple trades, and I felt like I was doing a pretty good job of being patient and being disciplined and not forcing anything. Now, one of the things I am most happy about and most proud of for February is I finally had one of those months again where every single week was green. And I guess, this last week, we only have Monday so far, the 29th. We've got to see how the rest of the week goes, the beginning of March. But hopefully I don't blow this and it gets to be another green week. But that was something I used to really pride myself on, was that kind of consistency and that ability to have green week after green week after green week. I think it was either in 2013 or 2014, only 2 of the weeks out of the year were red for me. And that's kind of what I'm striving for this year again. I need to get back to that level of consistency where I'm not letting one big loss just wipe out an entire week's worth of gains. So that was a nice step forward this month in February. I like that my gains were always able to overcome my losses. And I'm hoping I can continue that into March and keep my green week streak alive. Because day to day, things are going to happen. You're going to have red days. But as far as red weeks go, my goal is for that to be avoidable. And the other thing that I am really pleased about in February was the fact that with my loss tracking, this is the big thing, the big change I wanted to make. I needed to be better at cutting losses. I needed to be better about not fighting stocks. I needed to be better about not playing too large too fast. And February was my best month yet of doing that, by far. I had no mistakes where I added outside of my plan. I had no mistakes where I started in with too much size. I only had 2 times where I did not cut a loss. I think my best month before this was 6 times. So this is a huge step forward. I owe partial credit of this to stop limit orders because coming into the month, I had said that a goal of mine was to use stop limits on every single trade. I wanted to just kind of take it out of my own hands, let the computer take over, and that way I couldn't get stubborn. And for the first couple of weeks, I was really good about this. I was putting in my stop limits and the computer was doing the work, and I really just didn't even have to worry about it. I was getting stopped out, and that was that. Now, somewhere along the way, my mentality started to shift on that a little bit, and I fell out of the habit. And I'm not really sure why. I tried to think about that. I tried to go back to it and figure out what made me change. But just for whatever reason, I stopped putting stop limits in. And I did run into trouble those 2 times because of that, where I just sort of, after the trade, was like, man, like if I'd had a stop limit in, I could have totally avoided this. So that was dumb. But even that wasn't enough to motivate me to get back to totally doing stop limits and stopping out of every single trade. But at the same time, I was doing it myself. I was doing it manually. And it wasn't like I used to, where I'd wait around and see, it just broke through. Is it going to hold? I was still cutting it myself into the strength. I was still getting out immediately. So I guess, even though I failed my goal a little bit of using stop limits on every trade, at the same time, it was nice to see the personal success where I was able to take charge and do it myself. I didn't need the computer. So that is one of the first shifts that I'm going to make going into March is I'm not going to say now that I have to stop out every single trade and put in a physical order and have the computer do the work. As long as I keep doing it myself, I'm going to keep on doing it myself. I'm not going to take it out of my hands. I need to work on that self-discipline, I guess. So as long as I'm doing a good job, I'll let myself keep stopping myself out. But if I start to slip up, if I start to struggle, if I have a couple trades that I let go against me further than I want to, and I don't stick to my plan, then I will get back to using the stop limits. One way or another, I need to make sure I'm cutting the trade when I plan to. So what were those two mistakes this month? Well, they came pretty much in the middle of the month. The first one was ELMD, and ELMD, that was one that gave me a little bit of trouble. It didn't trade with the most volume, and those are liquid stocks always tend to be a little bit more of a headache for me. Basically, it was just a situation where I thought it had broken down. I thought it was toast, and there were a couple risk levels on the chart. There was a multi-day level at 350, there was the high of day in the 330s, and then the 320 bounce high up to that point. And the 320 bounce high is what I had sized in to play off of and what I had planned to play off of. And 320 broke, I didn't stop myself out, and then high day broke and I didn't stop myself out. It was just one of those situations where I kept on moving my risk level, and I hate doing that because that's how losses really get out of control. So I was definitely on way more of a ride than I wanted to be, but luckily for me, 350 did not break. I did start scaling out into pullbacks. I was not waiting for break even. I was not trying to turn it into a gain. I didn't add to the position. So, I mean, those are good things that I did, I guess. But, I did still take it off for a loss just because I knew with that pullback, hey, I need to get the heck out of this because if 350 breaks, I'm in trouble. And ultimately, long term, it has broken and it is still running. So, I mean, I'm glad I didn't try to turn it into a long-term swing or anything like that, because I have done that before where I'll start swinging the stock unplanned for a few days and things just slowly get worse and worse. So in this case, I went on more of a ride than I wanted to, but I still did cut the loss. The loss wound up being manageable. It was under my $1,500 limit. So, I mean, I just had to track it because of that ride I went on and because of the fact that unrealized I was down more than $1,500 at one point. The other loss was Groupon, and this is the one where especially I should have really stopped out because it was clear as day. It was a short into a multi-day resistance. It had a multi-day breakout level at I think it was 424 or something like that. And I was really, really proud of my entry. I was very patient on the entry. I made sure I got a really nice risk reward on the short. I got in at a 419 short average. I had 25,000 shares. So, I mean, even assuming a little slippage there, that's my $1,500 loss. So I had a great amount of size. I wasn't past my risk. And it's a setup that I have no problem losing on. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Unfortunately, in this case, I did wind up being wrong. 424 wound up breaking. And I cut half of it immediately on my own at 425. The other half, for whatever reason, I think I just was a little bit afraid of being tricked. And so I held the other half. And I still did at least cut it at 431. I only gave it about 5 more minutes and then just was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Screw this. And I got out. And it did continue higher after that. So it wasn't the worst job in the world of loss cutting, but I turned a $1,500 loss into a little over a $2,000 loss. So it was, again, not a huge mistake, but still noteworthy. Still one that I have to track, I have to log, I have to hold myself accountable for, because it was me breaking a rule. And breaking that same rule could lead to a really bad and ugly loss eventually if the stock really does rip on me and I get even more stubborn and say, oh my gosh, no, I really don't want to cut this. So those are the ones that I'm working on cutting out completely. Again, though, this is the best I've done so far ever since we started doing this back in November. So great to see progress, and I'm going to try to continue improving. Aside from the loss cutting and the not fighting and keeping size under control, there was one other thing I did in February that I felt like was a huge strength and really is going to help me going forward. And that's that I started tracking my trades and setups again. I started really seeing where do I succeed and where do I fail. This is something that I haven't done for a very long time. And it's very easy in your head to kind of trick yourself and feel like you're good at something, but then when you look at it on paper later, you're kind of surprised and you say, wait a minute, like the numbers don't reflect that. Like actually the numbers make it look like I'm really bad at this. Or, it could be flip. You could feel like you're not very good at a certain setup, but then if you look at the numbers later, maybe you're only winning 40% of the time, but overall you're very profitable on it because your risk reward is better than you think it is. So I decided I could benefit from this. I could really benefit from going through all of my trades again and just tracking and seeing where do I need to improve and where should I keep on focusing my efforts. What I want to share with you in this recap is an area that I'm failing so far. because a lot of these I still want to have a larger sample size. But these are a couple of the ones that I traded the most frequently over this last month and a half, and I was a bit surprised to see that I was failing here. And both are variations of the same play. One is called the lower highs short, and then one I kind of clarify, I say lower highs short, and then in parentheses, high of day risk. What this means is basically that the stock, it is having a green day. It's up. And if it's a lower highs short with high of day risk, that means what's happened is that the stock has peaked out, had its hard first crack, and then rebounded a bit. And I tried to short into that rebound with high of day risk because I think that the crack was too hard for it to overcome and that it should continue to downtrend. The other setup where it's not with high of day risk means that it's probably come down further. It's already set a clear lower high. I'm using that clear lower high as my risk instead of high of day. But what these two do have in common is that I'm trading a green day. I'm trading when the stock is up. I'm trading what some could consider still the front side of the move. And what's funny about this is that these are basically the setups that I talk about in chapter 9 of my DVD. The setups that at the end of the chapter I warn against. And I say, I cut this out of my trading. I needed to stop doing this. And at the time I did need to stop doing it because at the time my problem was not cutting losses. So especially with these ones that are up on the day and still strong, not cutting a loss can be deadly. That's how some of my biggest losers started, was fighting the front side of a move. But it still was a setup I wanted to be good at because I see other traders who are good at it. And I feel like it's something I'm capable of being good at. So when my focus became loss cutting, and that was something I really started working on and really started trying to make sure that was the focus of my trading, I felt like this was something I could try to trade again. And I thought that that would shift the results into my favor. I thought, okay, well, once I'm cutting losses, once I'm not wiping out my gains with huge losers, I should be fine. But so far, the numbers, they tell a different story. Between these two setups, I've got a sample size of 41 trades. Overall, I've lost on both of them. With the high of day risk, I've lost about $2,900. With lower highs as a risk, I've lost $3,600. These two setups right here, this is the most obvious flaw in my trading right now. Sure, there are a couple other setups that I've tracked so far where overall I'm losing on them, but those only have sample sizes of maybe 1 or 2 trades. But these have had plenty of trades. I've had plenty of opportunity to make money with these, and something's just wrong. I mean, with the ones where I risk off of high of day, obviously I must not be doing a good job of judging when a crack is hard enough because I'm only winning 38% of the time. Even when it's faded a bit further, I'm doing a little better. I'm winning 53% of the time, but overall I've lost money, which means my risk reward is off. So something in my way that I'm trying to trade these is very, very broken. And the simple solution would be just to say, okay, well, you know what? I'm done trying to trade these setups and just cut them out completely. And there go a lot of my losers every month, I think. But I'm not quite willing to do that yet. I want to keep working at it. I want to keep on getting better. I want to turn at least one of these into a winning setup for myself. I just have to figure out how. So I'm going to continue studying these for sure, but it's great. It's given me an area to focus. It's shown me something that I'm not good at that I thought I would be once I was cutting losses. I really haven't had much of a chance to sit down and deeply analyze the trades yet and see where I might be getting faked out or anything like that. But that's something I'm going to do early in March. I'll focus my attention here. I'll make every effort to correct the problems that I'm having. If the efforts really prove to be futile, if I'm still losing over all of these, then I will cut them out. And I will say I don't have the edge that I thought I did and I shouldn't be trading it. Now, a couple that I am doing well with, bounce shorts is one. I'm doing pretty well with bounce shorts. That's one of my main gainers so far. That's out of chapter 12 of my DVD. Multi-day breakouts have worked out okay for me, even though it's not that great of a breakout market right now. And overextended gap downs. I think that was chapter 11 of my DVD. That's one of my other most consistent setups so far. So I'm definitely going to keep on focusing my attention there as well, trying to make sure I take advantage of every single opportunity I can when it comes to those. And those really are areas where I expected myself to be succeeding, where then I'm shorting with the trend on my side. So I'll definitely keep doing what works, but I'm going to try to fix what's broken. I'm going to work on these front side shorts that I'm doing that so far have just been draining my accounts. And we'll see if I can make any progress in that area come March and if any other trends start to show themselves as I continue to track. But this is something I recommend that everybody do because it really helps you learn a lot about yourself. And especially if you are that newer trader who's looking for where you're consistent and looking for an area to focus on to start growing your account, I mean, this can be eye-opening. This can show you exactly the couple setups you should be trading. And then you can cut out all the other clutter and start seeing some consistency and start building your confidence. So let's just wrap up here by talking about what I did well in February, what I did poorly again really quick, and then just going through what my goals for March are going to be. So February strengths, obviously keeping size under control. I never really started in too big. Another strength was no fighting. I never added outside of my risk, and there were only a couple times where I was even holding outside of my risk, but I never fought it. I never tried to turn the loser into the winner. Loss cutting was a strength for me. Even though it wasn't perfect, it was still a huge step forward. And then tracking my trades and setups, because it really helped me get a clearer picture again of where I'm succeeding and where I'm failing. Now, some weaknesses in February, using the stop losses. We talked about that a little bit earlier. Even though it was a weakness, even though I didn't stick to my goal through the whole month, it wasn't necessarily a problem. Another weakness of mine in February was patience with reshorts. Now, I talked about in January how I knew I was going to get faked out sometimes, stopping out of these plays right away. And I wanted to be sure I re-entered. I wanted to be able to get myself back in. And overall, I did a pretty good job of reshorting when I felt like I'd been faked out. But then patience became the issue because I was so afraid of taking another loss. Mentally, it's very tough to say like, okay, well, I just lost. Now I'm willing to lose again. So I need to work on that in February and trusting my reads, because a lot of times if I feel like I've been faked out, I'm usually right. And finally, paying myself. That was definitely a bit of a frustration in February, where a lot of losses I took in February started off as winners, and I just did not lock in. A couple times, I would try and miss the execution, but there also were a lot of cases where I just got greedy, and I was saying, no, I'm going to hold for a bigger move. I want this to go further in my favor. And then, a couple hours later, I find myself stopping out for a loss instead. So I need to get better about at least locking in a piece and paying myself a little bit. And this always happens to me when I'm not trading well, is I'm looking for the home run. And when I'm at my best is when I am just constantly paying myself along the way, not trying to catch dead bottom on my covers, and just paying myself constantly because, gains add up. You can't go broke taking gains. Even if you're going to look back and cry a little bit later about missing some profits, it's far better than looking back later and crying about how you should have covered and you took a loss instead. So what are my goals for March? Well, first of all, obviously I want to continue cutting losses, whether it be by stop limit or whether I'm doing it myself. I'm just going to judge that by my discipline and how I'm doing at cutting it myself. If I'm failing, back to stop limits. Another goal in March, I still want to make the effort to not start in with any less than half of my desired size. I want to pick my spot and go for it. I don't want to shoot my average in the foot by having a really early starter piece and then just totally throwing my risk reward off. So that's going to continue to be a focus like it was in February. My third goal is to keep on working on reshorting if I feel like I was tricked when I stopped out. Like I said, I'm doing a decent job of getting myself back in, but I've got to start trusting the chart more, staying patient, and not having that fear of losing a second time. My fourth goal is to be quicker to pay myself a piece, to not be quite so patient. That's who I am. I'm a profit taker. And there's always that little internal battle in me where I want to hold out for the bigger moves like some of these other guys do. But at the same time, I don't want to swing. And I can't really toe the line between both worlds. So I'm going to just embrace who I am. I'm going to keep on paying myself. And just remember, I can always re-enter later after I've paid myself and taken some gains. And finally in March, since I was so good in February, I get to take another step up in size, $2,000 risk. And my goal here is just to enjoy this next small step up, to not let that step up go to my head, to not make it harder for me to cut a loss. I just want to keep on following my rules. And I'm going to keep on slowly increasing size until that becomes a problem. And once it becomes a problem, I'm just going to stay put for a while again. So as unbelievable as it is that 4 months have now gone by since I sized myself down and started rebuilding myself as a trader, I really could not be happier with where I'm at right now. I feel like I'm really turning a corner. It's great to be starting to increase the size again a little bit, because I think mentally that trading smaller has been one of the hardest parts of it all for me. But I just also am really proud that I am finally starting to break some of these bad habits. I am showing some serious progress. And it really reaffirms everything that I've been doing, because I did not want to continue to be the trader who takes the $290,000 Lake loss or the $180,000 PBMD loss or the $100,000 CANF loss. And these steps I'm taking, sure, I'm cutting more losses. Maybe my win percentage is a little bit lower, but I'm totally protected from that. And every day I trade in March, I'm going to try to remind myself of that. And I'm going to try to use that as motivation to keep on cutting my losers. So thanks to all of you who made it to the end of this video. I hope you all had great trading months, and I wish you all the best for March. Good luck to all of you correcting whatever issues it may be that you're working on.